George Conway is a conservative attorney and prominent Trump critic, as well as the president of the Society for the Rule of Law. Miles Taylor served as chief of staff at the Department of Homeland Security in Trump's first term, but he is now the target of an investigation ordered by the president as part of his retribution campaign. He's also the author of the book Blowback. The two join me now. Miles, I want to start with you. You are directly in sort of the target of this administration, and you're experiencing the creeping authoritarianism firsthand. You've spoken in the past about the kind of psychological and even financial toll that all of this takes on you and on your family. So first, I want to start with how you are doing and what your reaction is to this latest escalation.
Well, look, I'll be honest with you, because the only reason I'm continuing to speak out about this is I think people need to know what it actually looks like. And I won't lie, it's been a rough ride. It's been a turbulent ride. And I say that as someone who generally is an optimist, and I don't really like people to have sympathy for me. But this has not been made easy, because once you are on the president's blacklist, all sorts of things in your life start to implode. Businesses, relationships, friendships, financial. You have an army of lawyers. But this isn't just happening to me anymore. It's not just happening to my colleague, Chris Krebs, who was sanctioned on the same day in April. The president's revenge campaign, as many of us predicted, as George predicted for many years, has gone nationwide. And it's affecting almost every single institution of our society. And what's happening in Washington, D.C. is part and parcel of that campaign. And let me be clear. I mean, I was this man's chief of staff at the Department of Homeland Security. And I will tell you, this is not about public safety. This is political theater with rifles. And it's not just going to be limited to the capital city. I mean, Donald Trump has already signaled he intends to go to major U.S. cities and mount a federal takeover. You cannot call this anything other than authoritarianism if this is the way he carries it out.
George, because of what we just heard Miles describe there, the way in which your life is just utterly and forever changed if you end up in this man's crosshairs, do you think that's why we don't see more principled people, principled conservatives speaking out about what's happening to our country right now?
Oh, I definitely think that it's one reason. I mean, what we have here isn't traditional conservatism. It isn't traditional republicanism. It is authoritarianism. But I think a better word for it, as I think about it, one that more people can understand, is gangsterism, thuggism. We don't have Ronald Reagan anymore. We have Tony Soprano. He's holding people up, threatening them, bullying them, doing things that are beyond his legal power to do. And that scares people. It makes people pay protection money. We see Harvard possibly knuckling under to pay $500 million. We see these chip makers who are essentially saying, OK, take money from us. And we see the intimidation of people who have had the courage, like Miles, to speak out and criticize the president. And there is no limit to how low he will go and what he will do to intimidate and to threaten and to assert power over things. I mean, the only way you kind of get around it is he focuses on something else for a little while, and then maybe you can be left alone for a bit. And that's the problem here, is people are doing this, are fighting back or not fighting back, because they're behaving like they're in silos. The only way this stops is if people all get together, people of different stripes, people who are in industry, people who are in politics, people who are in universities, get together and say, enough. None of us are going to give in to this. And that's how this ends.
Are we not seeing that coalition, though, Miles, in part because we see what it seems the president himself sees? He said earlier today, basically, he knows he has this rubber stamp from Congress. He doesn't like people calling him or painting him as a dictator, but he also knows, I can turn to Congress and just have them extend this occupation for me and do exactly whatever my bidding is. So if other people see that there's really no check on this president, where do we end up?
Well, that's right. I mean, then his campaign succeeds and Donald Trump consolidates power in the United States, doesn't ever look the same again, at least for a generation. And I think George hit the nail on the head. It has to start somewhere. And I'll give you an analogy. If someone's getting attacked on a train and everyone's just watching and everyone's the bystander, we've seen this news story before. The only way that stops, the only way the person gets saved is one person has to step forward. And then that makes it easier for the second person and the third person and the fourth person. We are seeing the bystander phenomenon play out across industries, educational institutions, businesses, law firms, all over the place. In my little tiny slice of the world, the only reason my wife and I are out here being vocal, it's the last damn thing we want to do right now. We had started to build a business. We had a baby. We wanted to lead a private life. But it was clear if they started to come target individuals with these orders, people would just start capitulating because it's scary as hell. And that a handful of us would need to say, no, we're not going to lay down. In fact, I'm committed every single day until the end of this administration to keep speaking out, because we can't let them silence First Amendment protected speech in this country. Now, I'm just one person. What I'm much more worried about is what George pointed to, is these industries, these whole sectors where we need to see people speaking out. We need to see a Harvard not decide to capitulate. We need to see a Harvard decide to fight. We need to see more of the law firms deciding to fight. And I was just talking to a Harvard professor a couple of days ago. I was down in the South and she was traveling doing some research. And she said, you know what? The faculty, the students, the alumni, we want to fight. The administration of Harvard wants to settle. All right. And I think that leaders of organizations underestimate how willing their people are to stand up against this. They don't want to be muzzled. They don't want to capitulate. And some of the law firms found that out belatedly. So I'm hopeful that some of those folks who do decide to lead the charge in these places will lead to a domino effect of courage.
George, can you give us a sense of where this may be going? When we're talking about D.C., I mean, the president has not been shy about the fact he kind of wants to export this to other cities, but other cities are not like our capital. He doesn't have the same sort of levers of power over them. What route do you think this administration is about to take? And is there anything people can do to prepare in those cities now to fight this legally? Well, I think litigation is one point. I mean, I think that, there's litigation still going on. A trial has been going on this week about what the administration did in California with the California National Guard. That is not settled yet. I think there's going to be a lot of litigation about that, but I also think it's important that people understand why it is that this kind of federal overreach is bad. And it's bad because it consolidates power in a federal government. And as Americans, we have never wanted that to happen. We have always had a federal system where local authorities handle local things like crime and the safety on the streets, public safety. And for the federal government to get involved in that stuff is just, it's just a prescription for potential abuse, because they can do it all over the country and there are no checks. So that's why we have to really draw the line here and fight back. George Conway and Miles Taylor, thank you both so much for joining me tonight.